Good evening, everybody. We'll go ahead and get started with our City Council work session for 20 February 2024. First item on our agenda is the Greeley Evans School District update. And I will welcome them up to it. Cody, do you have any remarks you want to make?
I was just going to mention, Mr. Mayor, that we have Dr. Pilch from District 6 here tonight to provide an update on all the happenings going on through the district. And with that, I will go ahead and turn it over.
Thank you. Thank you, Cody. Thank you, Mayor. I want to introduce my colleagues who are with me here tonight. I have Kent Hansen, who's our Assistant Superintendent of Support Services. I brought him along because I know you all are particularly interested in construction and expansion and numbers and things. And then I also have with me tonight our board president, Mr. Michael Matthews. And so he's a great resource from a board director perspective as well as a parent here in the district. So I'm going to kind of go high level on some things we're especially proud of here in the district, and then I'm going to turn it over to Kent to get a little more specific about the bond issue and what that meant for the district, and then what that meant specifically for Evans and the construction that's occurred, and then we're happy to take questions and comments at the end of the time. We did bring you a folder because we're educators, so we have to have lots of materials for you, and. Welcome, Councilwoman Mortensen. So what you see in here first is you'll see our strategic plan, and we are in the middle of doing some slight revisions to this strategic plan. When you open it up on the inside, so it's this document here, when you open it up on the inside, this is the area that we're revising a little bit, but you see the mission and vision of the district. This has stayed really constant for us. The one thing I'll point out to you that is probably something we talk about it every day, is preparing students to be college and career ready. And that's an important part of our mission, that students are getting a personalized education and a well-rounded, excellent education. But at the end of the day, we need to be providing our communities with a strong workforce and with students who are ready to go to college. And then you can see our values. I'm not going to read those to you. They're on the front page of this. But when we're making the big decisions in the district, like what do we put in a bond issue? What do we put in a mill levy override? What do we cut? We're facing a period of time here where we're going to need to make some cuts in this next budget year. What do we cut? We look to our values as a system and with the Board of Education to really help us to guide those difficult decisions. As you go inside, you see there's 4 big areas. These are the 4 focus areas in the district, and these are the areas that drive us. And everything in the pink and teal colored and red box all goes back to that green box of student learning and achievement, because that's really what it's about at the end of the day, is making sure our students are learning and achieving. And then you have the details of that in here. I will tell you that behind each of these goals and objectives and outcomes are very sophisticated, robust plans that we have action teams working on. We have an action team for each area. For each objective, actually, there's a different action team, and those teams are ongoing. We're going to actually do some work tomorrow with our entire district leadership team, which is about 120 administrators, on this document tomorrow. And then please ask questions at any point. I'm very comfortable with you just jumping in at any point. Just a little reminder about our demographics. We have a total of 35 schools and programs in our district, so that includes our charter schools. This year for October count, and that's the number they used to fund us, we had 22,552 students. And of those 22,000 plus, 4,050 of those students are Evans residents. So you're a big portion of our school district. We had an on-time graduation rate of 83.7%. We've grown that continuously over the last 9 years now, and we consistently outpace the state in our graduation rate. And so we're really proud of that. Our children, you all know our demographic. Many of our children start school with us not ready to learn and not really ready. And so we have a lot of catching up to do throughout their career with us. And what we know is we've got to get them ready by that end of that senior year to be college and career ready. They got to graduate on time, and so that graduation rate is really an important marker for us, and a big target for us. We're really proud of our internships. You all have had interns here in the city of Evans, and we thank you for that. We thank you for partnering with us in this and in so many ways. But there's another pamphlet in your folder there around internships. I don't need to read that to you, but it really highlights the work of those internships, and we're really proud of this. It gives students a paid work experience between their junior and senior year. And, we had a time in there during COVID where we had very few internships. And so we had to rework and rebuild this program and redesign it to ensure we're providing opportunities for our students. Again, I just want to say how thankful we are to our community. If we didn't have the community we have here, we couldn't do the internship program. But employers throughout the community, for-profit and nonprofit, public and private, open their doors to our students. Many of them are paid by the business or industry that have invited them in. In some cases, nonprofits can qualify for scholarships that we have through grants that we write to pay for the internship, but we could not do this program without our community. So thank you for this, for your leadership here. What we have learned about the internship program that's most valuable, you would think it's always about, well, I know I want to do that, but we've also learned, students have also explored things that they didn't know they wanted to explore. We had an intern in our office who wanted a different experience, like an architect or something, and we said, well, how about you come and work in the superintendent's office, and we'll have you work with our legal counsel some. After that experience, this young woman thought she might actually want to be an attorney, and she had never considered wanting to be an attorney until she'd spent some time with our in-house counsel. So really valuable opportunities for our students in those internships. Do you have any questions yet? Keep going? Okay. We had 142 paid internships and 48 employers that participated. And again, we try to place on their interest, and it's not always a perfect match, but we sure try to. The career pathways is the other area I wanted to highlight with you all. Some of you have seen this before, but we really are the leader in the state around this career pathways work. Really a leader in the nation around this. And I can't take full credit for this. This work had been started by my predecessor well before I got here. But what you see are the different career pathways we have. We have concurrent enrollment in each of those pathways where students can earn college credit, where they're also pursuing the coursework in that career pathway. And you have in your brochure, or your folder, another brochure that is called Career and College Readiness. This really talks about those career pathways, has this full chart in it. And this is something that's constantly growing for us. Every year we're adding additional career pathways. I just came back, Mr. Henson, I just came back from a conference, and I learned of a career pathway in pre-law. We hadn't ever had that discussion, and so I said to the team, let's explore that. Is there a need for a pre-law pathway here and in District 6? But you can see in here each of the pathways that you see on the screen there in this pamphlet are outlined in here, and with real live pictures of our students participating in those pathways last year. And so when we look at enrollment in our career pathways, you see that business and marketing comes in second. Hospitality and education are coming in with over 1,200 students in that area across the district. It's a really popular area. We've also added culinary arts programs that are really much more like a industrial kitchen, a restaurant kitchen in our high schools, and so that's increased a lot of interest in the culinary arts. And then, of course, we're excited to see some growth in education. We've really got to do work there. We know there's a national teacher shortage, and so we realize the importance of growing our own teachers. And then business and marketing, really popular. The health sciences, ACE is, I don't know what ACE is. Agriculture, engineering and IT, and skilled trades. Here, I can't figure out what ACE is.
This is at Jefferson High School.
Yes. This is
The new one.
So it's a partnership career pathway program that offers career and technical education for students who are considered at risk or in an at-risk setting. So that's what ACE is. Thank you. At our new Jefferson High School. When you look at concurrent enrollment, so this is students who are earning college credit while they are still in high school. And you see a little bit of a dip in 21-22 because of COVID. We worked to build that back up. This current school year, you see that we have nearly 1,000 students each semester in concurrent enrollment courses. So some of those courses are at Ames Community College, some of them are at UNC, and some of them are taught right in our home high schools. Our teachers have been endorsed and approved by the university or by the community colleges to teach right in our programs. But we have a partnership with the community college in Sterling to do our cosmetology program and for those students to get concurrent enrollment while they're in the new cosmetology program. So we're excited about this. Our mill levy override dollars pay for every bit of this for our students and families, and we're really excited about it because we know that means we have 1,000 enrollments. So some of those students may be taking more than one concurrent enrollment class, to be fair. They may be duplicated, but we know we have nearly 1,000 enrollments where we're taking care of that tuition with our taxpayer dollars, and parents will have their students walk out of high school with their transcript for college front loaded, or oftentimes leaving already credentialed and certified to go directly into the workforce and into the trades. So we're really excited about this and just so grateful that we have the resources to be able to do this. Before we got to 2019, before we passed the mill levy override, we might have 75 to 135 students taking concurrent enrollment. So you can see the big difference there.
Is that including ECA students?
It
or
is.
Excluding?
It does include ECA. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and ECA is in their fifth year. So the 1920, well, actually, ECA is much longer than that. They opened in 16. So you can see it's certainly not just ECA students in those numbers. Have you heard about our new Career and Technical Education Center? We are so excited we were able to do this. We purchased an old CDOT building down on 14th Ave and about 2nd Street, and we didn't know when we purchased it exactly what might go in there, but we knew it was right next door to Billy Martinez Elementary and that it would probably be a good site for something in the district in the future. We renovated that site with our bond dollars and were able to rebuild Jefferson High School on the site, which is our alternative high school. But then we added these 5 current technical education programs on that site, and they are full. Really excited to open that this past fall. Just opened in August. But you see, education is early childhood and K-12. Then we have construction with a focus on electrical there. We've continued our partnership, you may be aware of, with Habitat for Humanity and our students being on their job sites. And then we added cosmetology. We'd never had cosmetology in the district, and our students couldn't even access it because there isn't a program at Ames. All the Cosmo schools around are private, and we can't use public dollars to pay for private education. So the kids told us what they wanted. So that's how we came up with cosmetology. And then cybersecurity, which is, it's growing a little bit more for next year. I think in this fall, initially, students weren't really sure what it was. And now students are finding their niche and finding their way into that class. And like the second week in the semester, I went in there and they had a little square about the size of the base of this mic, and they had built a computer in that square. These 2 boys, they'd built a computer in that square, and they were coding like Minecraft. The second week of the class. So it's amazing to see what they're doing. And then welding, of course. And so we're hoping to contribute to the trades by having those programs here in District 6. This was not in the original bond ask, but we were very fortunate with the sale of our bonds that we came out far better than we ever anticipated with bond proceeds. And so we were able to use bond proceeds to build the Career and Technical Education Center. And then we are implementing here in the next few weeks, I believe, a District 6 Career and Technical Education Discovery Lab. So you see that's a big trailer, truck trailer that'll be equipped with discovery kinds of lab for career and technical ed so that we can get that out to our elementary schools and middle schools for other students in the district to experience and start thinking about, careers they might be interested in, especially in the technical areas. So we're I'm excited about everything. See, all right, I'm gonna see if you have any questions so far, and I'm gonna pass it to Mr. Henson to talk a little bit about the bond and give you just a update on that.
Just to clarify, I'm sorry, the charter schools
Yes.
are which charter schools?
So Union Colony, which is the one closest here, but they're actually in the city of Greeley's. Salida del Sol is one of our charters also. Oh, sorry. Salida del Sol, which is a K-8 charter school. Frontier Academy, which is, there's an elementary and a secondary. And then University, which is a K-12 charter school.
Okay.
And Westridge Academy, which is K-8.
And those are in the financial realm of School District 6 then?
They are in that, so they're chartered by us. So we had to approve them long ago to come into existence. And then the per pupil revenue flows to them, and there are certain services that they purchase back from us, like nutrition services, health services, some of the special education services they purchase back from us. They also receive a portion of the mill levy override, and they received bond dollars as well.
I get the rest of the questions afterwards. I just wanted to.
You bet. All right, Mr. Hanson?
I'm sorry, I just have a question, just this before you get into the land stuff. I'm a G6 parent.
Thank you for that.
I have 2 kids. And so one of the things I know per site, every school is different. So it's not like every single school is ran exactly the same. One of the things that I would like to see, just because I think within our community, we have so many talented kids, and it's great that we have the pathways and adding to that. But there's younger kids at such a young age that have a variety of talents that in essence don't get showcased. And one of the great things about schools is when you have talent shows or what have you, it would be nice to have that disseminated, like to parents to know, because one of the things that I've noticed is that you'll hear about it, but after the fact. So the communication component for me, I think, if we can just provide all communication. So for example, even the student council, that's another thing that us as city council members providing that environment for children to potentially run in the future or understand what a body, like a governing body, looks like. Also have that information disseminated to parents as well, so they can partake. Because I do see, I see it happening, but I don't see information being sent out to kids, so they can also be a part of it or included or feel included or know what it's about. And sometimes, there's a lot of barriers, especially when it comes to communication. There's a variety of different people that live in our community. And so some kids, would like to do it, but they don't fully understand. And they're sometimes afraid to even ask and say, okay, maybe it's not for me. So just to provide that access to all kids.
That's really good feedback. And what we know is we can never communicate too much, right? I would say that type of communication is really on the building, because they hold all their, they don't all have the same clubs and activities and programs and those things. But it's really good feedback. And actually, this conversation I'm having tomorrow with our district leadership team will give me an opportunity to actually just say, this was some feedback I just received last night, guys. How are we doing this? And President Matthews has had children in several of our schools. So you may want to visit with him sometime about some of his experiences. But, it can be very different from school to school.
Yes,
Yeah.
and that's why I was like, per site is different. And the reason why I say is because I can have an experience, but someone else has a totally opposite experience. And so it's just, I don't
It's
know.
really good feedback.
Streamlining maybe, even the communication component.
That's
Granted,
really
we
good
can
feedback.
always do better in communicating because that's a never ending thing, but just
Really good feedback. Thank
awesome.
you.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Henson.
Okay, good evening. Again, I'm Kent Henson, Assistant Superintendent of Support Services. I oversee IT, custodial, all the buildings and ground, transportation. And most of the time I was lucky enough to oversee the bond issue through COVID and supply chain issues and everything. So that was a great lot of work that we're just finishing up this summer. So this is just a snippet of bond projects we did. At the end of this summer, we will have been through every one of our school buildings. The things that we promised out of the bond were that safe and secure vestibules in every building, new carpet, new paint, new door handles on classrooms were kind of the minimum, and then prioritized maintenance that we had in each of the buildings. So at the end of this summer, we will have been through every single building in the district. And we passed the bond in November of 2019. So we're just kind of at the 4.5 year mark on that. But in that, we built 3 new schools. Dr. Pilch talked about the CTE Center, major renovations and additions on there. Some we've replaced modular classrooms, which I'll address a little bit later. The smart labs are technology spaces in all of our elementary and middle schools, a highly interactive program that we have, and so we have that equity across our district. And at the end, I'll talk about we're building one more greenhouse in the district this summer. I'll tell you where here at the end. And then have upgraded, especially as we've gone through middle schools and high schools, those career and technical education spaces, adding culinary labs or things like that, wood shop at Heath, and technology lab spaces as we've gone through those secondary buildings. At the beginning of the bond, one of our downfalls was we had 142 modular classrooms in the district. These really are not safe. They're terribly inefficient. Some of them are maybe 20 years past their lifetime. And so in the original bond language, getting rid of Greeley West and some other things, we were targeted to remove 47 of those modular classrooms, which we did. But using bond proceeds and being able to come back and add some additions on buildings and get rid of those, we are currently at the 87 mark. So we have eliminated 61% of those in the district, which will present a savings in utilities and increased safety as we go forward. And the schools within Evans city limits, which are going to be the ones I'm primarily going to talk about tonight. I'm sure you know all 5 of those. And then this is just a spreadsheet I used for myself at the beginning of the bond, just to show the progress, what we were doing in the first summer. These are the summers when things would open, and we have stuck to this plan since the beginning of the bond, even though we had some projects that ended up taking 2 years instead of 1. We're right on track to completion of the bond when we said we were. And we are in phase 5 there at the bottom as we go into this coming summer. And so after that, we will be completed. So in terms of the bond work done in the city of Evans, Dos Rios was done, I believe, in 2021. And here there's a picture of every classroom in the building was done, as I mentioned, carpet paint, door hardware, and things like that, so that, the inside looks like brand new. But this is a picture of the secure vestibule. So you have the outside doors here. And the picture on the right is of the inside doors. And then you can see a door that goes into the office. All of this is secure. Once school starts, you have to buzz in to get past the first door. And then you can't go into the office or into the building without a second buzz. So at the end of this summer, all of our schools will have this completed. So it's very similar when we do a renovation as to a new build. And then Chapello, we completed in 2022. We did a renovation of the existing building and then did the addition of classroom spaces. They had their dance class out in a modular classroom. So if you can imagine jumping around in a building there, dancing in a building, not real conducive. One of their music classrooms was outside. So the addition you see in the left picture there is primarily performing arts spaces. So they have a flexible room with pull-out bleachers, with a stage that's a very nice stage for a middle school. And then they have an orchestra, choir, dance studio, as well as they needed about 4 additional classrooms. And so that was our work at Chapello. And then at Hyman Elementary, also I think in 2021, again, every classroom and exterior doors have been added, the vestibule. But this is an example of, this used to be their library, and they created this into kind of an open space where they could do a lot of activities. So they actually have different furniture in here now. The smart lab that we talk about is on the left, and it's in the back corner of that picture. It's an interactive technology lab that we have. So being able to renovate a space so it's totally flexible And they can use it however they want to use it to support their curriculum. And then Centennial is coming up this summer, so there's a rendering of the front of Centennial. Those of you that have been to Centennial, notice when you walk up, you walk into like a canyon to get to the front door, and the office is in the middle. That's not great for security, so like one of our other schools, Shawsheen Elementary, which is kind of a carbon copy, we're actually adding an office addition on the front so we can have the office adjacent to the secure vestibule, and then we go back in and renovate the office in the middle for more different kind of space that they need, and then also a smart lab, which currently their technology classroom is out into a portable classroom. So this work actually begins spring break. Construction fences will be up out front, and it should be done by August. And then this is just a top view. So A, there on the left, the orange is that addition that we're adding. B is the renovated space for the smart lab and stuff in the middle. And then the rest of the building, we will go through and do carpet, paint, door hardware, just like we have in every other building. And then in addition, on the right, those two modular classrooms that are hashed in red are going to go away. We still need to use the three in the back, and there's obviously the clinic there on the left, but we'll have to wait to get rid of those other portables for the future. And then also Prairie Heights, which before the bond was our newest building. And so for career and college readiness budget for the bond, they'd like a greenhouse. And so their kids go to Greeley West, where we have an ag program. And so they'd like to have a greenhouse, not only to support middle school ag program, but also their science classrooms. So we're going to add about an 1,800 square foot greenhouse. That is the southwest corner of the school, and that work will begin spring break and occur over the summer. And then I'll give it back to Dr. Pilch.
This is where I get to take over again. I think most of you are aware, but maybe you weren't all here. You all facilitated with us a property swap by Prairie Heights. I just mentioned this to just say how truly grateful we are for your partnership. The council and staff have been really remarkable to work with. That you've been great with the bond issue and any of the work that we've been pursuing. But we do hope that there will be a future bond issue. When we look at our new version of our strategic plan, it does say to study and secure and prepare for a future bond issue. In that bond issue, we would expect to have additional school sites here in Evans. We've talked about a possible smaller high school here in Evans. I believe that Evans will also need either another elementary school or a K-8 as we look at the numbers. So we're also currently negotiating with some property owners on additional school sites. We're not at freedom to share those sites yet, but I will just say that we have an intent, and it looks like that will move forward and eventually will be public in terms of what we're planning to do with another additional site. We did purchase water rights for future use, so we do have water, or we will have water when we need it in the future for future schools here in Evans. So we had an opportunity to do that here several months ago, and we were able to use some of our reserve to do that. And so, we're just really grateful for the partnership and the willingness to work with us. And Cody, I have to tell you, your staff has been really good, and Kent enjoys a really wonderful relationship with them as we work through some of these issues and understand water and understand the land and what the city's planning to do with the land and those kind of things. So thank you for that.
I do have a question about that. So I've heard rumor, and I'm sure you're probably not at liberty to disclose, but I heard that site has kind of fallen out of favor for a high school location.
So I will tell you, Mayor, it is not as large as what I would hope we would find for a high school. I will just say that to you. So we are, the other couple pieces of property we are looking to purchase are far larger than that and would very likely be more favorable for a high school. So I just want to be upfront about that. And we know, though, that that land swap was contingent on there being a high school built there. And so we know that that means there's probably some conversation we need to come back and have. I do think that site would be excellent for an elementary school and turning that Prairie Heights campus into a pre-K 8 campus. A high school would fit there, so if something happens and that is the site, in the future, we could do it. I just don't think we'd be able to do as much as we'd want to do there with fields and the ancillary spaces that you really want in a comprehensive high school.
Yeah, and I just say that I was on the council when we had this discussion, and I do feel a little disillusioned and disenfranchised over why we were so willing to do the swap. Was that we were under the impression that there was going to be a high school built there. So I just.
Well, and Councilwoman, that is certainly not off the table. I will tell you that. If we were purchasing a high school site, you would look for more acreage than what we have there. Let me say that to you. But it can be done there, and a lot of it will depend on what size of high school we need to build. If numbers are looking like you wouldn't build a 1,200 student high school, but rather an 800 student high school, then you don't need as large of a site for that high school. So we are committed to a future high school site in Evans. There's no question about that, and we're thrilled to have that land as a possibility. And a larger piece of property may be more desirable, and that's something we would want to work with you all on. As we get nearer to that, we would want to resolve that far before we step out and go for a bond issue.
Oh, I've got other questions, but she can finish her spiel.
No, I'm done. I'm ready for whatever
This is
you
the
all
end.
have.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah.
See if anybody else has questions, because
Well, I just want to say that was very strongly the impression we got, and that is why we went ahead and approved that land swap. And if it's not going to go there, even if I did the math roughly, 4,000 divided by 22,000, and it looks like 18% of your students are from the city of Evans. Now, granted, that's total, probably elementary to high school, but I would think before we build another high school, I remember, and I could be wrong, I remember you're saying Greeley West was already at capacity, or over capacity.
It's a capacity.
Right.
For what it was built
so
for.
why wouldn't we build a high school in Evans first before the other? And you've already got the land.
Oh, wait, what do you mean before the other what?
Before like elementary schools?
Oh, no, it would all be in the
middle
same
schools?
bond issue.
Yeah, okay, that's
Oh,
what
no.
I was saying. Like, shouldn't
yeah.
that be a bigger focus? Because, your one school is already full.
Right.
This would help ease that.
So I probably won't even still be here when these buildings are built, truly. I might be preparing for it, but there'll be a citizens advisory committee that helps to determine what exactly goes in that bond issue. But my hope is to be able to set the community up for that future bond issue. That's our hope. And there's no question that I would expect a high school to come in the same, I believe the high school would come in the same package as those other buildings, like we did this
So how
time.
many years are we looking at?
Well, we're probably looking at least 5 years before we would go back, I would guess, before we go back to our voters, because we got to buy down on our current bonds and that. But what we know is within 10 years, we absolutely need these additional buildings. And it's high school, it's elementary, it's middle. Our schools in Evans are all at capacity. There might be a little bit of room at Dose. You see that we still have portables at Centennial, so we can't even get rid of those yet. So we're almost every building in the district, but I think every building but 2 are at capacity.
Okay.
So, and when you think of capacity, that's really the ideal size that and number of students that building was built for. Especially at a high school, you can really overload a high school because you have, kids take 7 classes, teachers only use the classroom 5 periods, so you have 2 extra periods every single day that you can put more kids into and more teachers into. So you have a lot more flexibility with capacity at high schools than you do at elementary.
Okay, because I know Greeley is adding more housing. We've all seen it to the west, and I know that's going to put a burden on all the schools. And so,
Adding more housing and
well,
apartments, yeah.
and that's what I'm saying. So we're adding as well. That's just going to build the burden.
Well,
And
that,
that's just why,
West-
for me, it was.
and West Greeley is actually in the Windsor School District. After you get to about 75th Avenue, it's in the Windsor School District. So now many of those kids in those close by neighborhoods do open enroll into District 6, but we won't have the onus on us to build schools for most of that development. Now here in Evans, we will, and as you all know, Milliken has area that has not yet been developed that is also in the Greeley Evans School District. So there will definitely be more need out here, no question about it. And I want to be clear that we're not trying to go back on our agreement on the high school. I just want to be honest that since the time that agreement was completed, we have built Madison Elementary on a site, and we finished Greeley West High School, and we just have a much better understanding of the kind of square footage that, the acreage that is really necessary to do the kind of programming that our community demands.
I mean, that makes sense. I mean, if we're growing as the way we're growing, you don't want to build such a small school, especially a high school, on a land that's too small. I mean, you might have to look at other, but
There's really enough interest in our high school agriculture and horticultural program at Greeley West to have another program here in the district with that, and that's a very expensive space to build. So, I mean, I'm sure that is a conversation we will want to have when it comes time to build a new high school. Is do you need space for agriculture and horticulture, which means you need more land to do that than what a typical high school would take.
So are you leasing the land on 83rd Avenue for the agricultural part? Like where they
No.
keep the pigs
Oh,
and
so
the sheep and
that
where
is-
the FFA students keep their?
Yeah, so you're talking about the land that Kelly Longacre leases himself, I believe. So we are not
Okay.
leasing any land. I believe that Mr. Longacre is leasing some land.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So quickly here, you are preparing to go for another bond and not try to increase the mill levy?
Well, this time I don't know the answer to that. I mean, this mill was just renewed in November for 10 years, so we have it until 2032. So I don't think we know. I mean, so much can happen with school funding in a decade. I really don't think we know.
So recently, the governor asked everybody to, cities and schools to lower their mill levies so that they can help people in this tough financial time. Ironically, I got my tax today, and the mill levy that is on there for the school district is 49%. The mill levy for the city is 3.5%. Obviously, the city can't lower that. I know of a lot of senior citizens, 65 and older, who are really strapped for cash. They are going back to work. And so I'm wondering if the school district has any intention of reducing the mill levy for citizens or even for senior citizens.
So we don't have the ability to separate out a group like the senior citizens. Although if they're homeowners, they do qualify for a tax relief on school district mill levy overrides and bond issues if they've owned their home. So there is some benefit there for homeowners who are senior citizens. But we can't parse out a group of folks and say, you don't have to pay this tax. Legally, we can't do that. We did lower our mill levy override on our bond issue. We were able to do that in January, when the board certified the bonds. That was lowered because we only need to collect what we need to make our payment. And what we've told our voters we would collect to make our bond payments. So we did lower the mill 2 or 3 points, I don't remember, on the bond. We did not choose to lower it on the mill levy override, as what the governor had already done was actually going to lower our revenue from our mill levy override from what we had projected for this school year. So we held the mill levy override at this time. So it's, I hear you, and I know The governor put that plea out to cities and school districts. And I think, you know, we certainly as leadership did look at that. To explain your school district mills to you just a little bit, 27 of those mills are required by the state of Colorado. That no matter what, you have to collect on 27 of those mills because we're at a lower taxing rate than many other districts. So in Vail, for example, they only have to tax on 4 mills because of their level of taxing that they're able to tax in Vail. So it's very inequitable across the state. If you think about it, our voters here in Greeley and Evans, our taxpayers are actually proportionately greater burdened than taxpayers in far wealthier communities. It's a really broken system.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was trying to get, is some tax relief for the citizens here.
Any other?
Oh, I've got more, but there's other people here too.
Any other questions?
I just want to instead of asking all these questions, say some of the positives that I really enjoy seeing. The career pathways, that is fantastic. Just seeing, you know, our younger generations really getting into those specific pathways, and also knowing that, okay, I don't have to go to a 4-year college and I can go in the future if I choose, but for now, this is like the passion that I have, and it opens up at least that pathway for them to learn other things outside of, you know, the norm. I have to say, when I was younger in high school, I did a career pathway, but it was like business financing. I loved it. I'm really good at budgeting because of it, and I just continued that trend. But I think it really, really helps, you know, our students really get that like broader sense of what it looks like to be out in the real world. You know, so I really truly enjoy that. I do have to also say that the schools look fantastic. I do agree. I was a part of the design advisory board for McAuliffe, and it doubled in size, and it doubled enough for the kids that were there. And so it's, as you can see, it's like, although you're adding additions and doing all these things, it's like for certain schools, you're constricted to like the land that it has and trying to do the best you can. Some, fortunately, you can add more because they're newer, but I do agree as we move forward, I do want Evans to have a nice spot for a high school that's a good size, not just, you know, something we just threw in somewhere, because I think we deserve that, and any high school in any place is you know, kind of the pride of the city. And that's what we're lacking right now. We need that pride, you know, having the football team, basketball team, the girls soccer team, just to cheer them on. And I think our city really, truly needs that. And I'm glad to hear that some steps are heading towards that direction. So I hope those conversations continue.
In most every conversation we have about our current bond and a future bond, we talk about a future high school in Evans. So we're certainly doing everything we can to lay the groundwork for that. I appreciate your comments about career pathways. I will tell you that we knew that we had more work to do in the K-8 arena around career pathways. And you heard Kent mention these career and college readiness dollars in the greenhouse at Prairie Heights. So in this last bond issue, every school got what was called career and college readiness dollars to focus on something around careers or college, every single school. And so that's been a lot of the work we've done in the lower grades around career readiness. And then the mobile lab that I showed you the picture of, the truck, is another piece of that. And then the smart labs. So when we're done, when Success Foundation is done fundraising and we're done with the mill levy override, because we're combining dollars of both to do those smart labs. Every school, every elementary and every K and middle school will have a smart lab, which is a creator space, a space that requires kids to begin to learn CAD, to begin to learn robotics, to begin to learn graphic arts, a lot of teamwork and collaboration. And so we think that's really the younger kids' career and college readiness work. And we know we have work to do to grow in that area.
I do like those Discovery Lab trucks. That's great.
Any other questions? I know we have
Some
ahead.
comments.
Good.
6 years ago, I very passionately expressed my thoughts on supporting the school system because I feel that the people who grew up during the Depression and served in war and fought and suffered through World War II, whether they fought or they were in the United States, building planes and tanks and things like that. They supported me as a student in providing new schools and new libraries and many other amenities, parks. And I've always been pretty passionate about supporting that. But 6 years ago, also, I feel we have been, this council or members of it, some members of it that are still here, were conned by at least two developers. And now I'm afraid that I'm going to have to add the school district to that category. And I'm sorry about being so blunt about it, but that's the way I'm feeling.
All right.
I just had one more question. Another comment. I don't know who grew up in the school district here. I went to Madison, Shawshene, Franklin when it was a middle school, Heath when it was a junior high, graduated from Greeley Central, and my husband graduated from Greeley West. We called it something else. But anyways, so the thing that stood out for me though is that during that time, I was in the PEAK program, the advanced program, and we were kind of guinea pigs that ended up running out of math classes when we got to high school. So we had a college professor come in and teach us college calculus, which was really nice. So I just want to say that that part, bringing in for the students who want to advance and also having a different part for the students that maybe need some help is great. I really appreciated myself being able to take college classes the year before my senior year, during my senior year, and the senior year and after my senior year. It really it gave me enough of it should have given me a head start, but I couldn't decide what I wanted to do, so I majored in everything for 2 semesters. So I just wanted to say that that's appreciated still, that's an ongoing thing. I did have one more question, and it's just because another citizen asked me what happened to the CNG buses that were donated.
Yeah, those were grant dollars or grants from Noble Energy. Ken, do you want to address it? I mean, that we still have them up there. Ken's over transportation. I'll let him talk about it.
No, most of them have run their course. They did not run very well for us. Cold weather was a nightmare with those. We weren't able to service those in our facility because they were CNG. So anytime we had a problem, which was often with motors, we had to send them to Denver. We couldn't use them for, up in the mountains or long field trips because we had to be close to fueling stations. So as they kind of fizzled out, we didn't replace them with CNG. Diesels have been much more reliable for us for the miles and length of trips that we have to do. The CNG buses just didn't last. They were more if we had, I think, 7 of them. Very frequently, we would have 3 or 4 of them down at a time. So
were they, after they were decommissioned, did you donate them to someone else, or are they still kind of in?
No, I saw we have one of them that we have up for sale. I don't know if that one runs or not at all, but I did see it was on one of our back lots.
We sell all of our.
Yeah,
our
we
equipment.
typically do.
Any of our vehicles we sell.
Yep. There are some grants that we may get for buses where you have to decommission a bus. Like to get this one, you have to decommission it and make it so it doesn't run. So we have been in that situation a couple times.
Right, thank you.
Anybody else? Well, I have to say, as a D6 parent, one that's currently at ECA and one that graduated high school from Northridge a couple years back, I've always been impressed with D6 and how how they provided a great education, at least for my kids and everything like that. So I appreciate that. One of the things I was glad to see is this. My youngest at ECA is always asking about internships, and one of the things that caught my eye was Summit Aviation here. He's interested in this, so I'm going to have to do some more checking and say, hey, look, here, take this out. Go talk to your counselor. Go see what you can do, because I know he's very interested in aerospace engineering and that, so that's good. No, they've always said to me, you know, with all the schools that are being built, especially the STEM Academy over there by Winograd and Northridge, like, where was that when I was going to school here? We would have loved it. They would have loved to have gone to that. But no, I've been a big, you know, supporter of D6. I think you guys are doing great. Like I said, great education, not only for my kids, but everybody else that's kids that have gone through it, I'm sure have had a great experience. And I know we would love to see a high school in Evans. I know that land, when we come to it, might be a point of contention at some point down the future, but I definitely would agree that the intent is there. It still could be, but I also don't want to see the school district and us as a city, if we're going to build a high school, build something that's underutilized and already is at capacity. I want to see something at least that can grow, especially with all the growth that we have, not only in Evans, but Greeley as well. So I want to thank you guys for being out here. I really appreciate it. It's great to hear from you. You guys are doing some great things, and you know, it's always great to hear about all the good stuff going on in D6.
Can I go back to that property slide?
Sure.
A second? Because the one thing, and if you remember, I was on the City of Evans Strategic Planning Subcommittee and sat through that. And so knowing that Evans wants a high school bad, and we talk about that often, but the way this property swap works here is that is before the swap. So the blue City of Evans owned, we had purchased that property from First National Bank on the outside. And so when we were approached by the City of Evans about a possible swap, the advantage for both parties would be that, I mean, it would give us property that's next to property we already own. And then the City of Evans had the property on the outside. The way that's written, and I think it was for 10 years, or was it 12? I think it was for 10 years. I was always very hesitant to say that is a high school site, because we don't know size of high school we need and whatever. So if you look at the language in that if we don't build a high school there, then what's in the brown would go back to the City of Evans, and then we would retain that inside lot. So the purpose of that language was because couldn't guarantee that would be a good high school site. If we found something better, that it might be a useful site, you know, for something else on the blue. And when we get to that point in time, we'll see what happens, and then we talk. Maybe it's land for purchase,
So,
or whatever. But anyway, I just want to remind everybody how that
Right.
wording was in that.
what was the original intention of your purchase then, since there was a space between the schools then?
Well, let me, I guess, put it this way. When we passed the bond, we had no available property even to build Toynton. That literally happened after the bond passed. And we were able to purchase that land with the help of Banner Health and build that site. Their land should have been purchased by the district 20 years ago and wasn't. And so any parcels of land that we could pick up for possible future use, we look at that, because there's not a lot of land left within our school district.
That's similar to what we did with the CDOT property, and then there's another property,
Behind transportation, there's a 12 across from Dos Rios. There's
Jim
about
Smith's place.
12. Yep, we have picked up those two pieces of property. So it's only to our advantage in the future to have that, so that we have flexibility.
our predecessors didn't plan for growth in the future, and that put us in a really bad spot when it came time to realize we needed a new K-8 school somewhere in West Greeley, and there was no land, which is how we ended up on a golf course.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, and also, Greeley West, we were able to build that on site. We actually built through the original Greeley West to complete that. We have a couple buildings that probably need to be demolished. I'm not sure they're sitting on the acreage where we can build next to it and keep one running. So we have to be very mindful of what space that we have.
Understand complete challenges that we have, especially with all this growth that we have going on. I get it. Understand. Anything else?
I mean, I think they're the same challenges, even within a city that we have, same thing. But I just have to say, with our schools in Evans, they look fantastic. Thank you. I know, like, when we went to Chapelo, seeing that stage, and everyone was happy to have that space, especially the students. That was fantastic. And just seeing just all the exteriors and how they look, and it just makes, it gives, again, brings that pride. So we are definitely appreciative of all that. And of course, our citizens and, residents, of course.
Yes. Great. Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate you come here to
Thank you.
Evans. We hope to hear from you again soon. We love to have you anytime you want to come. Give us an update. Love to host you. So, great. A lot of good things going on in the school district. I really appreciate everything you guys do. So thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for
Thank
answering
you.
our questions.
Yes, thank you.
All right.
Here's the quiz.
It's homework time.
Do we have a Scantron? Do we need a number two pencil? All right.
Mr. Mayor, members of
Bob's
City
rules.
Council, it's a presentation on Bob's rules. These are the rules of order that we're proposing City Council to consider that would govern the conduct of City Council. I'll get into the slides, but some of these slides we can go over fairly quickly because Bob's rules incorporates the rules that City Council already follows, thinking, and I don't mean by City Council, I'll say myself, thinking that, this is what Robert's rules must say. It's like this, but it's actually not necessarily the case. So these are the rules that in many cases we follow. But then I'll stop and hover over some of the areas that were new information for me and that would, I think, provide tools for City Council to consider using in the future. Also, what we'll be asking is direction on whether to propose an ordinance that would repeal the part of the Evans Municipal Code that includes Robert's rules, as well as a resolution adopting Bob's rules. But of course, these are your rules as a city council and as a body. And so if that resolution would adopt Bob's rules, hypothetically, it could be done also with amendments to, exclude certain rules that, okay, we don't like, or add some caveat to a rule that is in Bob's rules. So with that, I'll move on. This looks like a touchback here. It's a very clever slide that I put in there for the first one. Legal sources of procedure. We have the Colorado Constitution, the Home Rule Charter, the Municipal Code, and then procedural rules. So whatever happens here, any procedural rules will be subject to the existing laws in the state of Colorado, as well as our charter and the Evans Municipal Code. The Evans Municipal Code only speaks of rules of procedure in one instance, and that's 2.04.020C. And that states that when a procedure is not specifically provided for in the council resolution, Robert's Rules of Order shall be used. So we've interpreted this to mean, okay, Robert's Rules governs our current process. What's wrong with Robert's Rules? It's 803 pages long, 96 types of motions. It's difficult to reference. There is not a recognition of quasi-judicial proceedings in Robert's Rules. They're designed for larger bodies such as the U.S. Senate or United States Congress, not practical and not Colorado specific. We can't really use them as is. If there were to be, and we don't see a lot of procedural conflicts, but there'd be some fumbling going on, and from my end at least, as far as, hey, where's the Robert's Rule on this issue? There might not have been a formal motion presented, and so concerned about Robert's Rules. Bob's rules are specific to the state of Colorado. They've been reviewed and drafted by Colorado municipal attorneys, specifically drafted by Robert Widener, who's a municipal law attorney that represents the city of Centennial. These rules are the product of 1,600 public meetings and hearings. They're capable of resolving conflicts, I think, because everyone can reference them and say, oh, wait, this is where this rule is applied, and there's an easy reference in the appendix of the Roberts Rules book. There is a reference that has all the rules together, and they're pretty easy to interpret and understand, and they work together. They follow generally follow the existing meeting practices that we already follow. They help protect the record from legal challenges. All inferences that can be made from the record are considered to have been considered when the city council takes action. And I think an important one is that I see this is my opinion, that they really empower the board members with a digestible set of rules that are easy to understand and apply. And there are some tools here that I think are helpful toward letting every member be able to, in due time and in the process, take control of a meeting or raise issues. So what do the rules say? This is Rule 1.1, and in effect says that Robert's or Bob's rules or any rules of procedure are subject to the governing laws, the other governing laws. So we're not changing anything with our code or anything. Notice this is one that we can just, the type of thing that we can zoom over and say, oh, that's nice. We don't have to ask about whether notice is provided properly at the agenda item, because it's presumed under the rules that have been adopted that, okay, proper notice has been completed. Motions. A motion is not required for the body to initiate discussion. So Robert's Rules actually does require that. We don't follow it. A motion is required for the body to take formal action. And this is one that would affect our motions. A motion shall propose an affirmative proposition in clear and understandable language that is limited to either a yes or a no. So we don't see many motions to deny, but basically it would eliminate the motion to deny something, because there is no need for city council to take action to maintain the status quo. And so it would be a motion to approve. And we'll get to this, but I think this is a good time to just think about it, that every motion requires a second. And the person making the motion does not have to argue in favor of that motion. So let's say there's something that a city council member doesn't like, and they think, I don't want to support this, resolution ABC. They may say, I move to approve resolution ABC. And the process under these rules is that the motion is made, and then that initiates debate. And they could then make the case that I don't like this, and so I want to deny it. And the person providing the second also does not have to support it. These rules follow the introduction of an item in the agenda, and then a presentation, and then a discussion that doesn't require motion. But the way these rules are formed, then there's a motion that then triggers debate that precedes the vote. So that's one thing that Bob's Rules has as a process. Ours tends to go, there's an agenda item, there's a presentation, then there's a discussion to maybe clarify the issues. Then there's a debate, and then at the end of that, there's a motion and a vote. I don't think that this, I think it would be usable, to use Bob's Rules and not really change a lot about what we're doing, but it's good to keep that in mind, because this presumes that, okay, there would be a discussion, and then the motion, and then debate, and then the vote. So that's important to note. That's how Bob's Rules considers that the typical meeting occurs. Any questions so far? Okay. So a motion requires a second to be placed on the floor for the body's consideration. The presiding officer, that's the mayor, the planning commission board presiding officer, must acknowledge that the motion was properly stated and seconded in accordance with the rules. Okay, so that happens here. The presiding officer shall offer the moving member the first opportunity to speak. And that goes along with, well, okay, look, if I post something, then I have an opportunity to explain my position. A meeting ends upon the presiding officer's declaration of adjournment without objection, or on approval of a motion to adjourn. So if there's a request to have a formal motion to adjourn, that would be in order. But without such a motion, then the meeting adjourns. And then there are main motions and subordinate motions. Subordinate motions relate to a main motion. So a subordinate motion may be a friendly amendment, which we'll get to, where, okay, there's a minor change. Let's say there's a dog leash ordinance that has a minimum leash requirement of 10 feet, and a member of the city council wants to change it to 15 feet. There doesn't have to be a formal amendment to do that. It could be a friendly amendment, and then subject to a formal amendment if another member raises that as something that they want to do. The floor is required to address the body. A member's right to the floor is limited to 5 minutes, and a member may obtain the floor only once until all other members are offered the opportunity to obtain the floor. So, friendly amendments I just talked about. It's authorized for a debatable motion, and the amendment of the motion will be effective unless another member objects and says, no, I want something more formal, please. A friendly request is for a simple change. A more complex change would require a formal motion to amend. That's still considered to be a subordinate motion to the main motion, which would be to approve the item. Presiding officer serves as the parliamentarian unless that role is assigned to another person. So the presiding officer may exercise discretion subject to a point of order or point of appeal. The presiding officer and the body under the rules may deviate from the formal application of the rules of process. But then if a member raises, and we'll get to points, a point of order that requires the formal rules to be applied, then that will be decided by the presiding officer, and typically the formal rules would be triggered. What are points? There are 3 types of points: a point of information, a point of order, and a point of appeal. A point of information, all points have this in common, that they may be raised at any time. Okay, they're not debatable, and they can involve any aspect of the meeting that must be resolved independent of the business then being debated. So, let's say a point of information could be, I have to ask staff, I'd like to ask a point of information. The mayor may recognize that the person doesn't have to have the floor, and they say, are we proposing spending $325,000 for this front end loader, or is it $350? I wasn't sure, but I need to know that before I vote on this item. That would be a point of information. A point of order would be a point of order, and then recognized by the mayor. You don't have to have the floor. This motion didn't have a second, and it needs to have one. Oh, you're right. We need to have a second on this motion to consider this item. So that would be a point of order. A point of appeal would be to say, I understand the mayor, as the presiding officer, has discretion to as the parliamentarian and may deviate from the rules. I disagree with this decision that was made by the chair, and I'd like to raise that on appeal. And then that appeal could be subjected to a vote of the body, and a majority would mean that the decision of the presiding officer can be overturned if an appeal is successful. So those are points. Executive sessions, there are privileged motions, and one of the motions would be to go into executive session, and those must be carefully drafted to comply with Colorado's open meetings law. They're privileged, they can be raised at any time, and they require 2/3 vote of the quorum. So those are executive sessions. And I think that about wraps it up on the rules. Let's see. Questions?
Sure. Sorry.
No, you're fine.
Okay.
So along with, it's even stated in Robert's rules and Bob's rules that there is some historical tradition and practices that can overrule the actual Bob's rules, Robert's rules. So I guess we have to ask ourselves, how long do we want to have our meetings? I mean, are we happy with the traditions that we have set up here? Because if we are going to do Bob's rules, Robert's rules are very encumbersome. But if we even do Bob's rules, it's going to drag our meetings on longer. That's my point.
So I would counter that. I think that it could actually make it more efficient. Because not everybody has to spend their 5 minutes. So it really does the same thing we have right now, but it means that there is a time constraint to, yeah, so I don't know. That's just my thought.
So the folks that have been on here longer too, I mean, I think, do we want to go to this? Or do we want to continue doing our business the way we've been doing it, which is pretty much this way with some minor changes that, that were pointed out here?
Well, and I think my thought is that the city council could adopt Bob's rules. And then in the event there's a conflict or that a member wants to create more formality for whatever reason, they could do so. And then it would bring us to be able to look at Bob's rules to resolve a conflict. But otherwise, the meetings would probably go the same way they have, but it's a way of referencing a set of rules that apply to Colorado meetings and that everyone has access to, and that I think are easy to reference. But I don't know that if city council adopted Bob's rules that we're gonna have to change, or city council would have to change its conduct unless there was, a desire to do so by the body. But I don't otherwise think so. I mean, the rules provide that the presiding officer may deviate from the rules as well as the body, but it's when there's an issue that is raised at that point, someone's talking for 8 minutes and, a member raises their hand, point of order, this has gone on for more than 5 minutes. Okay, now we go back to the rules to resolve that issue. But otherwise, I think business would continue as it has all along.
Yeah, because
If I understand you right, we're changing the rule book that we're using to one that actually more aligns with what we need and desire, at least in your opinion. Because right now, I could do that technically, and according to we'd have to go to Bob's 803 pages. Is that correct?
Yes, that is true. That is true.
For me, I like it. I think we're already doing it. I think it provides a flexibility to really, like, if someone needed something to be expanded on or just truly understand what happened, what have you, depending on their time on council, they have the opportunity. But I think we have that flexibility anyway. And then when I was reading here, there's also the discretion of, the presiding officer for that flexibility. So, I mean, which we technically already do. So I just think this kind of aligns more with what we already do, and it fits, and it's kind of like the whole, like you mentioned, the parliamentarian component, the quasi-judicial component, and certain things that we already do or hats that we wear. It just aligns better for us to do business.
I thought so too, and I was kind of understanding as well. We kind of already follow it as it is to me. We do, I think one thing we do very well is we do have a lot of flexibility with everybody on council to allow them to speak and give them time. I think this just sets more of a formality on how it can go, and I would say more if a conflict were to arise. I don't think it's necessarily going to change the way we do everything. I just think if there was just some conflict between council members, this could be kind of like the median. Say, hey, as a presiding officer or whomever, hey, rule whatever applies to this. Let's have a debate, and then if we can't resolve it, let's go to a council 2/3 vote and say, okay, this is resolved. We're moving on. I think we kind of already follow that. We don't really have any of those really issues, but I think it's just more of a clarification if we ran into issues down the line. I don't think it would really, in my opinion, change anything that we do now. I think we all have kind of degree of latitude on that as it is now.
I think the basics are pretty much the same in both Bob's and Robert's. And this just more or less simplifies it and cuts it down. And it should be sufficient, I think, to handle any discrepancies or objections to the way that we're proceeding. And that it would be a good fit. We have to have something in place, I think, to to satisfy the statutes. So, anything that simplifies government and reduces the amount of paperwork you gotta read is good.
And I think we do a pretty good job. I mean, my thing is always try to streamline our council meetings in order to, maximize everybody's time, because everybody has, things to do outside of here, and we want to get through our business as quick as we can, but also make sure we have all the information that we need to make proper, motions and proper, votes. So I don't think it's going to make any changes to it, and I'm in favor of it.
I'm also in favor of it.
Sounds like direction to present an ordinance that would repeal the Roberts Rules part, and then a resolution adopting Bob's rules. And the thing about the resolution is it provides more flexibility. So it'd be the most recent resolution on file with the city clerk, but then city council could change it by resolution in the future if there are any desires to change it. So thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Oh, we gave you 30 minutes and you only used, no, I'm just kidding.
And you summed up the book in just those
I
few
know, how did
slides.
you,
I
yeah,
was
exactly,
like,
that's a good.
I'm like, I read this.
Put my 6 hours back.
I read this.
We could have gone for an hour and a half because we had some other things. Cody didn't want to do that.
I think we need a council picture or something we got going on,
Yes.
so we gotta make sure we get that done. Thank you, appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right, I guess they're gonna clean up everything, and then we're gonna have our council picture, and then